last 10. Carr tips it in, and it's Waller. He spins into the end zone for the touchdown. Watching greatness on one end in LeBron. There's a dude with 35 in white getting it done defensively and then offense taking over the fight. Mama, there goes that man.
They have shared a brilliant championship battle, but the championship can only be won by one, and it's going Dutch in 2021. Max Verstappen, for the first time ever, is champion of the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Waterboy Experience. I'm your host, Davis McLemore, the Waterboy himself, as you have come to know me. And man, if there was ever a week to make an episode of the Waterboy Experience, it's this week. We had a lot going on in the world of NFL. We had some historic numbers put up on one team, and we had some big names around another team, and some rumors and dating and all that different kind of stuff. Some drama, I guess. Quarterback drama, that is. I mean, let's not bury the lead. Let's just get right into it with the big thing everybody was talking about this past week, and it was, blowing my absolute mind because I don't get why everybody's making such a big deal out of this. But I'm going to introduce you, and we're just going to get right into it. The CEO and CFO of Night Productions, the Red Bull chugging son of a gun. He's a Swiftie if you've ever seen one, Mr. Jason Shaddix. Jason, how are you, man?
Well, I'm doing pretty good, and you're right, I am a bit of a Swiftie. I'm not a major fan, though, so you ask, why is this such a big deal? It's not really, but, Swifties, they follow Taylor's life, and they're like, we have to know who she's dating. And it's like, oh my God, Becky, look at her. So it's stuff like that. Hell, there was even rumors that she left his hotel inside a giant box that was supposed to hold a popcorn machine. Yes, this is how crazy Swiftie fans are, but they have good reasons for it because she has done that in the past, left in a box. And you know what Jim Cornette says? Whoever comes out of a box is over. In this case, she's mega over.
I don't know about this box story. I really don't believe you. You're going to have to find some footage for that from me. But yeah, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are apparently a thing now. Let me start by saying I am not a fan of Travis Kelce. I think he's a big, what's the word? Give me a word.
Caveman, Neanderthal. Fuck, I can't even say it.
Well, no, I think I mostly don't like him because this is the guy that cuts promos like The Rock after he wins the Super Bowl. I'm just like, man. But you brought up the point the other day that if he was on the Raiders, I would love him, and maybe that is true. But it's because he's talking about my least favorite team in the NFL, if it's any secret. I hate the Kansas City Chiefs. There, I said it. I don't like Patrick Mahomes. I don't like Travis Kelce. And now, well, I never did really to begin with. I don't like Taylor Swift. I'm sorry. I think all of her songs sound the same. But I'll tell you what, I will listen to the song that she releases when this inevitably ends in a fiery breakup, because it's got to, because Travis Kelce is just, he's so egotistical. He's so about himself. Maybe they're the perfect pair, now that I think about it. But no, I would love to hear the breakup song that she makes about him and whatever, and perform it live. Ooh, imagine if she performs it for the Super Bowl. Ooh, that would be big. But what do you think?
Well, it looks like you've put more effort into this than I have, more thought into it. But you did bring up a point about her playing at the Super Bowl. Did you know that she was actually asked to play at this upcoming Super Bowl, but she said no, and a lot of people think it's because of some fucking reason. No, she said no because she had a tour date in Japan at that time. And you know who they got at the Super Bowl? Who her replacement was in case she said no? Usher. I haven't heard that name since 2014.
Oh, yeah. I think Usher's going to do good, but, if you ask anybody to name an Usher song, everybody's going to say yeah. So, and don't get me wrong, I love that song, but it's a little bit too, 2006? Yeah, I love Usher. I think he's a good performer and everything. I think we could have gone a little bit better than Usher. But yeah, that's basically it. Another fun fact, Travis Kelce is actually the highest selling jersey last week. in NFL.com, and I bet you know why. Because all the Swifties are buying Travis Kelce jerseys. So, good for them, I guess. I hope you're getting your money's worth, and Jason just broke my chair. Man. Yeah, you just broke it. But anyway, we're going to move on from that. I think we should jump on to the next big news of the week that everybody else is talking about. The Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa, Travis Kelce, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, and their head coach, the good McDaniel, Mike McDaniel, who actually was a former ball boy for the Denver Broncos back in the day, put up 70 points in a 70-20 victory for the Miami Dolphins. You've never seen that high of a scoring game. I've never seen that high of a scoring game in my lifetime either, except when I watch college football. But that Miami Dolphins team was just stellar. They were impressive, and the Broncos did what they did best, and they took the bump, they took the fall, and I don't think the Sean Payton experience is working anymore. And I think another big factor you have is Sean Payton and Russell Wilson do not like each other. So that's the biggest contributing factor to why I think this Denver Broncos team is falling apart. The Miami Dolphins, I will say it right now, they look like the most well-oiled team in the NFL currently. So, what are your thoughts on the historic numbers put up by the Miami Dolphins?
So I have some interesting facts about that game. Did you know it's not the second game with the most points, but it is the second game where they've scored the most points per team. So the record is actually 72, and it was put by the then Washington Redskins 72-41 against the New York Giants back in November 27th of 1966. 1966. That's how far back we have to go to get a team that scored 70 points, at least 70 points. And now the Denver Broncos have done it. Now, for that historic game, that was a total of 113 point score. For the Broncos versus the Miami Dolphins, it was only 90 points, which ranks at 21. So that's just an interesting fact that I found. But the thing for me is, and we kind of recorded an episode last week that it didn't air because technical issues, but I went on a rant about these teams and how can they play like this? How can they do so bad? Isn't it funny that I cut that promo, it didn't fucking air, and then the Broncos went 70-20 or 20-70? Fucking ridiculous. You know, you blame the head coach, Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. It's a whole fucking organization. Oh, yeah. And to add to the fact, it's Tua, like I've always said, Tua is fucking amazing as long as he's healthy. And fuck, was he healthy last Sunday. And going back to the Chiefs game, they actually thought for a while that the Chiefs were going to go to a really high percentage because what was the end game score, like 40-something to 10? At halftime, it was 40-0. And they were like, oh shit, are we going to see two teams score more than 50 points in one weekend? Well, they didn't get it. Oh, and also, I actually have the facts. Travis Kelce's jersey sales went up by 40%. So that's a little fact, but overall, fucking hell. What are the Broncos doing? Why aren't you firing everybody? Why aren't we getting breaking news? Russell Wilson has been fired. Sean Payton has been fired. Rich Pistachio has come in as the interim GM.
Nah. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that their last good quarterback besides Peyton Manning, John Elway, is the GM of the team right now, actually. So that's a little interesting fact, but I don't think you're giving enough credit to the Miami Dolphins here. I think they're the reason that they did so well. I mean, they're doing something right. And actually, they had a chance to kick the field goal and beat the record for the most points scored in the game, and they were going to get 73. For whatever reason, they opted not to. I thought you shouldn't have let up because, I mean, you know, you get the chance to break the most points scored. You are already sending a message scoring 70 points, but if you break that record, that message is just multiplied. So,
honestly, I expected them to go for a touchdown because what are you losing by going for a touchdown? it's not like the other team has been good at blocking those.
Oh, yeah. And when you score 10 touchdowns in a game, I mean, you know you're going to have your way with this team. You know that you can just walk all over them and do whatever you want. It's, it's one of those things. But, yeah, speaking of the Denver Broncos, a falling apart organization, we're going to go from one falling apart organization to the other. Let's look at the New York Jets. As we mentioned on the unreleased episode last week, Aaron Rodgers is no longer with the New York Jets. I mean, he's still signed with the team, but, he's not playing. So their starting quarterback is Zach Wilson. If you'll remember last year, a couple years back, we were talking about him and the big scandal about him sleeping with his friend's mom and all that kind of stuff. And what a guy. We salute you. But there are a lot of players on that team that are saying if Zach Wilson is their starting quarterback at week 4, they don't want to play. And I get it. The kid, he's not the best quarterback. But what else is there? What other options do you have? Actually, someone reached out to the New York Jets about becoming their new quarterback. And, well, I think he reached out about being a member of the practice squad. Can I read this letter on air? I mean, Bleacher Report released the full letter, so I assume if they release the full letter, I can read it on air. Well, Bleacher Report here on their Instagram page says that J. Cole, the famous rapper, released the letter to the Jets, but the letter is addressed to Joe Douglas, who I believe is in the GM or something of the Jets. I'm not really familiar with their hierarchy here, but this is the letter from Colin Kaepernick. Dear Joe, I hope this letter finds you in great spirits. Despite the less than ideal start to a big season, I'm wishing you, your staff, and the players a great game this weekend as you look to bounce back. I'm writing, of course, in response to the unfortunate loss of Aaron Rodgers. I know the aspirations this season were and still are to win a championship, and so that Hall of Fame-sized hole will need to be filled as best as possible to keep the team on a Super Bowl track. As of right now, Zach Wilson is charged with that task, and I wish him and the rest of the team the best moving forward. However, and this is the kicker right here. However, I know that there are currently depth issues at the position. Like I said, there's no one else there, whatever. And I've heard that the backup spot is likely to be filled by a veteran quarterback. As much as I would love the opportunity to fill that spot, I'm writing you in hopes that you can imagine a much different approach involving me. I would be honored and extremely grateful for the opportunity to come in and lead the practice squad. He's a humble guy. I respect him because, he knows he's not going to get in there and be the day one starter, but you can read between the lines. You know what he's asking. So we're not dumb, Colin. We know you want the freaking starting quarterback spot. I would do this with the sole mission of getting your defense ready each week. If I were able to fill this role for the team, I believe this allows for multiple things. 1, it gives your defense the advantage of getting a truer read on the more mobile, athletic, versatile quarterbacks it will face. When in weeks 4, 5, and 6, Mahomes, Wilson, and Hurts, I would consider it a privilege to be able to do this and would take on this responsibility with the dedication and passion as if it were the QB1 position. Dude, you haven't played in 6 years? And the last workout you had with the Las Vegas Raiders, people were calling it the ugliest workout, the worst workout they have ever seen anybody do. So what makes you think that you can even mimic a Jalen Hurts or, you might can mimic Russell Wilson, just sit on the sideline and cry and yell at your coach. That might work, but you're not going to mimic Patrick Mahomes or you're not a mobile quarterback anymore. Maybe you used to be, but you're not. I'm going to skip ahead here to the later parts of this. I am sure of my ability to provide you with an elite quarterback option if, God forbid, QB1 goes down. However, I know that there may naturally be uncertainties for you and possibly from others about my playing abilities. This plan, I believe, allows me to be of great service to the team as a practice squad QB while also giving you a low commitment chance to assess my capabilities to help in any other capacity you may see fit. Basically, a fancy way of saying I want to prove to you that I can be your starting quarterback. And dude, so you went from wanting to be the practice squad quarterback and get these teams ready to play mobile quarterbacks and all that different kind of stuff. And now you're basically asking to be QB1. No, dude. No.
Okay, so I've taken your phone because I love this slide. I think it's fucking hilarious. And I'm going to repeat it because it just needs to be repeated. He goes, the backup spot is likely to be filled by a veteran quarterback. As much as I would love the opportunity to fill that spot, what the fuck? He's acting like they already said, hey, would you be our backup veteran quarterback? What the fuck, dude?
It's almost like he's saying, oh, you're too kind. I can't do that, really. But if you insist, I'll be your QB1. I mean, I just fucking...
He's fucking mental. He's fucking mental. Like, what the fuck, dude? Not only is he problematic and is going to bring issues to the team, but like you said, he hasn't played in, 6 years? And the last time he got a tryout, he canceled it himself at the last minute. This is the type of man we're dealing with. Honestly, Zach Wilson, he has his issues. He's a bit immature. I think he would make for a decent quarterback. I mean, last year, before the whole crybaby stuff happened, I kept on telling you, dude, this guy might be the guy that the New York Jets need because they were doing pretty decent. At least I thought they were doing pretty decent last year. But they need to get somebody. They need to get somebody who's either young and has a high potential and no chance of being a crybaby, or they need to get a veteran quarterback that has played in the NFL at least in the last 12 to 24 months in an actual game. But Colin what the fuck?
Well, and this is the other kicker because his next paragraph, and you're going to love this. As a final point, I would like to add this. Unlike many of the veteran quarterbacks that have been named in the media, I've never retired or stopped training. Bullshit. My training schedule has remained the same for 6 years. Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. training on the field and in the weight room. I've kept this training schedule without failure for the past 6 years in hopes that an opportunity will present itself. I say this to give you some perspective on where I'm at physically. Wait, and this is the most outrageous part. I've also attached a list of my references within the league that will vouch for my character, work, ethic, and ability. References Jim Harbaugh, Michigan head coach, San Francisco 49ers head coach, 2011-2014. He played for him? Good. Chip Kelly, UCLA head coach, San Francisco 49ers head coach, 2016. Played for him? Good. John Harbaugh, Baltimore Ravens head coach, brother of Jim Harbaugh, and played against him in the Super Bowl. Okay, he's a good one. Here's a good judge of character, a great judge of character that happened to handpick our quarterback, our head coach, Mark Davis, the Las Vegas Raiders owner. A fantastic judge, a great guy you want to listen to. Who, by the way, if you called him up and asked him, he would probably tell you, yeah, Colin had the worst workout out of anybody I've ever seen. Or he might say that he's a great quarterback. I don't know. At this point, I don't know what Mark would say. Wow. What a guy. Just the sheer, look at the state of him. He's begging for jobs. He's attached his resume, And, that's all well and good. Okay. But you've been out of the league for 6 years and you want to tell people that you've been training day in and day out like you've never left the league. Then prove it. There's a reason why teams won't give you even a workout anymore. There's a reason why you won't even get on the Jets practice squad, let alone be QB1. It's because you fucking suck. It's because you haven't trained every single day and you're slacking off. You've lost the talent. You haven't retired yet because I don't know what you're holding on to, but you need to fucking retire. You just need to hang it up, call it a career. Your career ended when it did, and it was unfortunate. That's part of it. find something else to do, man. Go do something. I'm rambling at this point, man. I don't know. Just that was Colin Kaepernick sending his, please can I have a job? You're too kind if you give me the QB1 position, but I'll take it.
It's also important to mention that he is 35 years old and he was never at a Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady capacity, which, let me clarify, I've always said this, Aaron Rodgers is overrated, but compare him to Colin, fucking hell, Aaron Rodgers was good, all right? And now compare him to Tom Brady, who was playing when he was 40-something. Like, dude, no, you're way too old. You were mediocre at best. Let's be honest. He was mediocre at best when he was in his prime. So, I don't know what he's thinking. He's like the Vince Russo of the NFL. Like, he talks shit. A lot of the times, he's just doing it just for the publicity sake of it. Look, no team is going to hire him. Like, if somebody would have, it would have been the Raiders. Why? Because they have a long history of hiring players they shouldn't have. Case in point, former owner Al Davis, father of Mark Davis, hired a guy who pretended to watch the videos that they told him to watch. He never did it, and he would make up plays. Yeah, that's who they were fucking signing, and they still won't hire him. Hell, I bet Al Davis would have had a heart attack if they did sign him, if he already wasn't dead. But anyway, that's enough about Colin. But it leads us into a great segue into the Raiders, because I saw them play while I was out, and good Lord, you want to talk about a bunch of Johnny Dumbfucks? Look at the Las Vegas Raiders. They are a mediocre team with really great players, and we sound like broken record players at this point because we keep on saying the same thing. Devontae Adams is a tremendous player. They threw the ball at him. I will say that. They threw the ball at him. He did well, but it's everything else, the defense, the offense. Nothing about that team is right. And it's Josh McDaniels is just trying to recreate the Patriots, except he's not Bill Belichick or Tom Brady. He's the guy that got Tom Brady's coffee.
And I saw a post the other day of a Raider fan page. I believe it was Raiders Rap. Shout out to you, whatever. Talking about one kind of unsung hero, one of the best receivers that we have, and my personal opinion, I think he's one of the best route runners in the NFL. Hunter Renfrow. He only had 2 catches in this last week's game against Pittsburgh for 17 yards. Overall on the season, I believe he has only had 3 targets. You're not going to win football games, and I'll give whatever to Patrick Mahomes, but he spreads the ball out. When he lost Tyreek Hill, he spread the ball around. He had Byron Pringle, Travis Kelce, all those guys. And that's how you win football games on offense. Not by throwing it to the same 2 guys. Yeah, I realize that Josh McDaniels has a lot of faith in Jacoby Myers. I do too. I think he's a good guy, good player. But there's other options on offense. And you need to spread that ball around. You need to find some other options. And ultimately, Jimmy Garoppolo just needs to throw the ball better. I couldn't even tell you because it made me fucking scratch my head at the TV when they were talking about how Jimmy Garoppolo has the highest completion percentage in the NFL and all this different kind of, and they're talking him up. And they never did that to Derek Carr, but they're talking up Jimmy Garoppolo, hyping him up, and then he goes out there and he fucking bombs. I mean, we can see what's going on here, and we know what happened last year when I don't really think we had a chance to really talk about it, but Derek Carr got benched for the last 3 games because Josh McDaniels doesn't like it. Because Derek Carr had an idea of what he wanted that system to look like. Josh McDaniels didn't like it, and he wasn't willing to listen to what Derek Carr wanted to do. He wasn't willing to adapt to what the players wanted. All that Josh McDaniels wants is to run that offense like he wants to. And he doesn't care about what anybody else has to say. And if anybody else thinks that they should run a different system, well, shit, I don't know what to tell you. Because there's a reason in that coaching poll that they did several months back or last year at the beginning of preseason or whatever, he was rated the lowest head coach out of all other 32 head coaches in the league for one reason and one reason alone. He doesn't listen to the players. So now we're getting to a point where there's talent that's just being swallowed up. And I think he's purposefully making some talent look like they're not productive by not throwing to him, just so he can have an excuse to be like, well, this guy wasn't very productive, even though we only threw to him 5 times in the entire season. So we're going to get him out of here. We're going to replace him with another expatriate. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that that's not exactly what he's doing. He's manipulating the numbers. He's changing things up here. He's making some guys look good. He's throwing the ball constantly to people. You know, you always have to throw the ball to Davante Adams. That's your number one wide receiver. You got to have some other people step up on this team because it's not going to last very long like this. So ultimately, that game was just terrible. He made some terrible play calling decisions. I mean, who runs the ball on 3rd and long in the 4th quarter? When you have a chance to tie the game by going for a 2-point conversion, if you score a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, you tie the game. What else do you have to fucking lose? Go for it. Don't just kick a field goal and take the loss. What kind of guy does that? I'll tell you what kind of guy does that. Josh McDaniels. And ultimately, you know, I'm not the only one that feels like that, because our biggest star, Davante Adams, obviously feels the same way. See if you can pull up the quotes from Davante Adams. Jamie, pull up that movie about the Moose. Shout out to Joe. We love you, Joe. This is a paraphrase from what Davante Adams said in a press conference after the game. Quote, I don't got time to just wait around. It's not my mentality to take all season to figure it out. You don't. Obviously, you know, the quote that you showed me just now, it kind of took a little bit out of context. Well, not out of context, but it left off that last part where he said, I don't got all year to just wait around to figure it out. Last year was the year for us to figure it out. This year's the year we're supposed to execute. And you're absolutely fucking right, Davante. Last year was the year that we were supposed to have this shit figured out. We can't pussyfoot around this year trying to decide who we are or what we want to do offensively, defensively. That we can't do that. When Josh McDaniels joined this team, it was a win now team. And there are guys that are frustrated because he has obviously, everyone can see it, he has taken this team 12 steps back in the complete wrong direction. And here we are. We're looking at possibly another terrible season. And you asked me the other day, do I think this is Josh McDaniels' last season as the Raiders head coach? No, I don't think it is. I honestly don't think Mark Davis has it in him to fire Josh McDaniels. I think he full-heartedly believes in what he's doing as a head coach. So what you're going to end up with is all of your players, all of your good players that give you that little burst of hope. Josh Jacobs, he's had a rough year this year, but that offensive line sucks. It just does. I don't put any of this on Josh Jacobs. Davante Adams, Divine Diablo, the great guys that deserve to win a ring, they want to go somewhere and win now. And a lot of people are saying, well, they can leave if they don't like it. Well, yeah, they can. But guess what that's going to do? That's only going to make us worse. So that's my thoughts about the Las Vegas Raiders. I might stop watching football this year. Again. Dude, it's not even halfway through the year, and I'm already tired of this, dude. And I'm not the only one. We all are. The players are. They know what to expect at this point. So, what do you think?
Well, I really can't add more to what you said. I mean, you put it so elegantly and so calmly. But I will mention...
I'm sorry. Pardon my French. Josh McDaniels is a fucking bitch.
Like I said, he's very elegant in his wording of things. No, but I mean, what can I say that you haven't already said and that we've already said? I mean, I've pointed this out many times to you in our private conversations, and I'll say it again. And I think I've said it in the podcast before. Josh McDaniels is not a good coach, and he cannot blame the players. It doesn't matter if he changes the game so Hunter Renfrow doesn't get any throws or anything, okay? It doesn't matter if he changes stuff like that so that he has an excuse to fire them. At the end of the day, there's still the years back of when he was playing with a different head coach and a different quarterback, and you see the results. John Gruden, for example, when John Gruden was the head coach of the Raiders before the whole thing happened, they were okay. He wasn't the best. I think he was washed up. when Rich came in as the interim head coach, and, you know, it took him a minute to find his footing, but once he got the footing on, he took him to the playoffs. After quite a few games of losing, he took him to the playoffs. And I told you,
that was not just a bad year. That was an awful year. Think about what happened that year. You had your head coach halfway through the year get fired. He's done. Well, he wasn't fired. He stepped down, but, you know, he was asked to step down. You know what that means. Mm-hmm. Your star receiver, before we got Devontae Adams, Henry Ruggs, gets in a car crash. He gets sent to prison for manslaughter. I don't know how long the sentence was, but this was one of your brothers, dude, and he's gone. Think about what that's got to do to a team where, you know, when Carr was on the team, when you had Carr, Ruggs, Jacobs, Max, when they were all there, they were all so close. And when that happened, it took everybody down. And Rich gave us what we needed. We needed a leader. We needed somebody to light a fire under us. And he did. And he got the team together. Josh McDaniels has done nothing since he got there but divide the team up. Last year, it was Derek Carr's fault. Whose fault is it going to be this year? Whose fault is it going to be next year? How far are we going to let this go until everybody just mans up and says, this is Josh McDaniels' fault? And, you know, everybody already has. Everybody did that last year before the whole Derek Carr situation. The fans are doing it. The players are doing it. When is Mark Davis going to realize that his project didn't work? Time to move on to something else. That's all I got to say.
What he said. No, I mean, you're right. And Devontae Adams, you can't blame anything on Devontae Adams. As soon as he left Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers was fucking done. He didn't have any more in him. And I told you, we're seeing him for the quarterback that he was. Mediocre, but with great players. And the Raiders had everything last year. They had Devontae. They have Josh Jacobs. They had Max Crosby. And you just could not make it work. And there's just one thing in this equation that throws, well, at least last year and still to this year, that throws everybody off. It's Josh McDaniels. He's not a good coach. He was never a good coach when he was with the Patriots. We all know who ran that team, and we all know who was the second in command, and it was not McDaniels. It was Tom Brady, and it was Bill Belichick. He couldn't make it work at any other fucking team. What makes the Raiders so different? And I don't think Mark Davis is ever going to admit he was wrong, because that's really bad on him. But, dude, you're fucking wrong, man. You should not have fired Rich. Like I told you, he's the Dan Campbell of the Raiders. He'll keep the team spirit high. I mean, look at the Lions. We beat the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions, on opening week. All right? We fucking beat them. And then, come on, you got McDaniels there, and it's just a fucking joke. Anyway, let's move on, because you're in a bad mood.
Yeah, let's move on to something that might brighten my day a little bit. Matt Riddle got fired from the WWE. That really makes me happy, man. I'm so glad I don't have to see birds flying out of his ass. And obviously, let me say, I'm not happy to see somebody jobless. You know, that's not what I'm saying here. But Matt Riddle, and I think I'm the only one saying this. I'm the only one that noticed this. Matt Riddle is the modern day Marty Jannetty. Dana White says, and you can pull up the exact quotes if you want to, but paraphrasing what he said, Matt Riddle told somebody in an interview one time that the only reason he smokes weed is so he doesn't beat his wife and kids. That's a not a direct quote from Dana White, but that's paraphrasing. What the fuck? What kind of an addict are you? And when he was in the UFC, Dana White said the only reason he didn't have more fights in the UFC is because he couldn't pass a drug test. He only works 3 times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, max, in his fights. And he couldn't put off weed long enough to just have 1, 2, or, however many fights. And he worked 3 times a year. That's sad, man. That's really sad.
Not only is that really sad, but it also shows that no matter where he's going to be a problem everywhere he goes. In the WWE, how many times was he in the news? Like a few weeks ago, he was in the news because apparently he was, I believe, drunk, and he said one of the TSA agents sexually diddled him, all right? And now it's like every time, like, he had a problem where he was cheating on his wife with like a porn star or something like that, which, look, I don't fucking care about that stuff. That's your own personal life. But every fucking few months, like, as soon as you forgot about him, he did something to make sure you remembered him. And the WWE was officially sold to Endeavor, which is a Hollywood agent sort of place, and they own the UFC, and now they merged the two companies together to be TKO Holdings. And that's the last thing they want. They cut about 21 people. Matt Riddle was one of them, and you can't fucking blame him. Like, the dude was mediocre in the ring. His whole gimmick was just a 2000 movie where all he did was, bro. And he had, like, Davis might sound like he is just joking about birds flying out of his ass. No. The WWE had graphics of birds flying out of his ass in the ring in his entrance. It's ridiculous. And look, I'm not sad to see him gone, quite honestly. I think it's a long time coming, and hell, I don't even think he's going to get a job in the wrestling business unless Tony Khan is willing to hire him.
Well, and so what kind of a world do we live in where CM Punk doesn't have a job, but Matt Riddle does? I mean, do you remember that one WrestleMania that they had it in Tampa Bay? The birds flew out of his ass, and they had pirate hats on. Oh, that was next level stuff, let me tell you, dude. But no, what do you think happened? I mean, they kind of gave a detail of what happened. I haven't really looked into it. I just know that he was drunk and disorderly when he went through TSA. Did they finger? Oh, they fingered him? Oh, I thought they goozled his man parts or something, but because I don't know what the definition of dizzle. What'd you say? Diddle. Yeah. I don't know what diddle means. So they just, wow. Okay. Reportedly, they didn't actually do that, but you know, I can just hear him going like, "That's my ass, bro. Stop." That sounds more like Vince Russo, honestly, but yeah. Let's get off of Matt Riddle from one guy we're, you know, kind of happy to see leave to two guys that we really weren't happy to see leave, but you know, we kind of knew it was coming. Shelton Benjamin and Dolph Ziggler. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a long time coming again, but this one is for different reasons. Dolph Ziggler, tremendous wrestler. He's really good in the ring. His promos are good. It's just they didn't know what to do with him. They've been trying to figure out what to do with Dolph Ziggler since 2014. Like I said, tremendous worker. He can get a job anywhere, and he'll probably make it in those other companies. But for years, they didn't have anything for him, and he's come close to quitting many times, but they kept on re-signing him. Finally, they just said, well, thank you for all those time. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Bye-bye. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. So that's sad. Shelton Benjamin. I love Shelton. He's a great wrestler, but he is really bad at talking. Like, that's not his points. That's not what he's good at. He's good at wrestling. When he was in the Hurt Business with Bobby Lashley and MVP, he was tremendous because he didn't have to talk. All he had to do was be the muscle and all that, and he was great at it. And that was a perfect role for him. But if you have him by himself, and they tried to push him, and they made him talk, and it's like, he's not good at that. And it's sad to see him go, but I was seeing the writing on the wall for a while now. There was also some other people that they let go that I'm surprised took them this long. One of them was Flop Dollar. My God, that man.
About Top Dollar.
That man, it was not meant to be in the wrestling business. Now, look, I'm not somebody to shame somebody for being out of shape, okay? Because me and Davis are not in shape, to be quite honest. But if you're going to work a job where you're required to be flexible and run cardio, that's not a job for him. He was huffing and puffing. He was like a dog with his tongue hanging out. And I remember one time he tried to jump the top rope because everybody does it. And his stomach got caught on the top rope and he just flopped. And that's where he gained the name Flop Dollar, because his name is Top Dollar. But I want to ask you this. What do you think about the fact that he was fired, but the rest of the team wasn't? Hit Row is still in, well, I don't know if they're going to still be Hit Row, but they're still in the WWE. Do you think they see something in them?
What's the girl's name? B-Fab? I do think that they see something in B-Fab. Now, I'm not entirely sure what. Oh, man. I know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to bring in, and they've already signed her. She's already signed a multi-year deal, Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill is going to be the new leader of Hit Row. Boom, done. I thought Hit Row was a good concept back when Isaiah Swerve Scott, now he's Swerve Strickland in AEW. I thought it was a good concept. I know it wasn't your thing. You didn't really care for it, but I liked the general idea of it. And then, of course, Swerve left for AEW, and, at the time he was AJ, but they changed his name to Top Dollar. Not, you said Top Dollar, it's Top Dollar. Get it right. And what's the deal with everybody clamoring for him to go to NWA? I don't get it. Could you imagine if he goes to NWA and he fights Tyrus? It would be like watching, oh my gosh, it would be like watching two meatball subs go at it. And that's really all Tyrus is just a foot-long meatball sub from Subway with arms. If you want to call those arms. I mean, he's just slow and just methodical. And remember when he was the dancing dinosaur? He moves like a dinosaur now. Whew. But anyway, kind of going back to Shelton Benjamin and Dolph Ziggler. No, I love Dolph Ziggler. I especially loved, I believe it was No Mercy 2017 against The Miz. That was one of my favorite Dolph Ziggler moments, period, or when he cashed in on Alberto Del Rio, or who's now Alberto El Patron, or whatever it is.
Who's now Alberto the Convict.
Alberto the Convict, yes. When he cashed in on his Money in the Bank and won the world title from that, I watched that live as a kid. And I was like, man, what a cool moment. He got over instantly with me after that. So, and then
wasn't he also Vicky Guerrero's sugar baby?
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that, dude. Wow, that's been a while. That was like back when I first started watching. But he's the only guy. Dolph Ziggler's the only guy to come out of the other side of the Spirit Squad, and made kind of a good little mid-card career out of himself. And Shelton Benjamin, what can you say about Shelton Benjamin? He's a great worker. He's got the looks. He had it all except for the promos, and the Hurt Business was the perfect spot for him. But I do think he was the most underappreciated guy out of that 2001, 2002 OVW class, give or take, which of course is the historic class that had Batista, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, Shelton Benjamin. No, if I'm Tony Khan and I'm in AEW, those are two guys that I'm looking to sign. Leave Matt Riddle alone and leave Top Dollar alone. Top Dollar, my bad. I got it wrong there for a second. Leave them alone, but look at Dolph Ziggler and look at Shelton Benjamin. Either A, as guys that can come in and teach younger guys, or B, these are guys that you can make stars. I mean, stick Shelton Benjamin in a tag team, world tag team champs, boom, done. Dolph Ziggler's a great promo. I think he would be a great heel. So that's what I'm thinking. But yeah, so I guess that was the latest WWE news. Did you want to go over Serena Deeb?
Yeah, real quickly, we'll talk about it. So if you haven't followed professional wrestling, there's this company which we've mentioned a few times called AEW, and we actually ran a segment about this almost a year ago, where former WWE champion and AEW World Heavyweight Champion CM Punk was suspended for fighting a bunch of children, and now he's been fired a few weeks ago. And, this is something I can't remember who said. I think it was Mark Henry, former World's Strongest Man, by the way. He said, well, now that CM Punk is out of AEW, you got rid of all the toxicness of the locker room, so there shouldn't be any more issues. And then it comes out, I think a few days ago, that Serena Deeb, who is a tremendous wrestler, somebody who has trained the top women you see in WWE, apparently she had a disagreement with management, and now they've kind of written her off TV. So, was CM Punk the issue? I think not.
I'm going to read the direct quote from Mark Henry here about CM Punk. This was on Busted Open Radio podcast. He says, quote, "Now you can freely go and there will be no more complaining. There should be no more complaining. The problem is gone. The so-called problem is. Everything should be shits and giggles and unicorn piss and rainbow blankets. That's what it should be now. I'm curious to see how it's going to be. The problem is solved." Of course, talking about the firing of CM Punk. And a lot of people, AEW faithful, if you will, or I shouldn't even say AEW faithful, the elite faithful, they all took to Twitter and they were like, oh, Mark Henry sees it. And I'm like, he's being sarcastic. How are you that thick where you don't see that he's being sarcastic? And so, obviously the whole stuff with Serena Deeb came out and the problem's not gone. The solution is gone now. You let the solution go. The problems are still all there. So.
Yeah, you're right. And well, I think this is the start of more trouble to come. I think CM Punk was what started it. And I think we're about to see in the next few months, if not a year or two, like a lot more shit come out about the problems going on in AEW. Because a few months ago, there was a bit of an issue with the women's division and somebody who was getting, I think, a trial match or at least was wrestling on her minor show. And she said, well, the locker room was essentially a bitch to me. And all of them jumped on her and saying, oh, no, we're a sisterhood. We're this and that. And it's like, you can't be a sisterhood. You can't be close together. That doesn't mean you still can't be a bitch. And just everything you hear about AEW, you kind of think there's some truth in what she said. Maybe one of them said it and didn't mean it a really bad way, but another one did. So it's stuff like that. But let's move on from the world of professional wrestling and wrap this up with a little bit of Formula One news. So let's start off with Sazuka. That's where they were racing at this past weekend. And Max Verstappen won the race. No surprise there. Nothing new. Quite interestingly, 2 Red Bulls DNF'd, means did not finish, yet Max still won. Do you know what I mean? Do you have any idea of what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you mentioned this to me earlier, and I was like, what are you talking about? How is that even possible? And you were like, let me explain it. You just kept saying, wait for the show, I'll tell you. And I was like, I don't even get what you're talking about. You're going crazy here. I think you've had too many twisted teas. But please do tell. How is it even possible?
I'll give a little bit of a background before I explain. So this weekend, and as has been the entire season, has not been Checo Perez's year. All right, he did win 2 races, and in Jeddah we were like, oh shit, Checo is going to fight Max for the world championship. And I was all here for it. I wanted to see Checo Perez fight Max Verstappen. I wanted to see that rivalry between teammates that we haven't seen since Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, and Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. And no, but it's not been a great year. He's crashed out many times. For a while, he had gone like 5 races without reaching Q3, and it was all bad. And then last week in Singapore, it wasn't his fault because Max also did not get into Q3. They were just having an awful weekend. But this race, it was just, what the fuck? So essentially, Checo got some damage at the beginning of the race, and especially when he punted Kevin Magnussen's car. They retired the car. But towards the end of the race, they brought Checo out, and he did another lap, and then he boxed because he had a penalty for hitting Kevin Magnussen's car, and that penalty was going to go over to Qatar. And so in order to avoid the penalty, which would have been a grid penalty, he came back to the race, limped around. At one point, Charles Leclerc thought, oh shit, Max is having an issue. He literally thought he was in P3. But it was just Checo who just did that, and he boxed and he retired. So technically 2 Red Bulls DNF'd, and Max still won because it was Checo. Checo DNF'd twice. It wasn't against the rules. A lot of people thought, well, how the fuck are they doing this? No, Red Bull had been asking the FIA since Checo retired, hey, can we do that? Because the car can still go. It just can't go a full race distance because it's damaged. I think the floor had a bit of damage. So they agreed, and because he went into the pits and didn't just pull over, he was able to go, and it was just a really long pit stop. About 48 minutes was the length. But just Checo had a horrible weekend. And quite honestly, at this point, I'm not surprised if he's going to get replaced at the end of 2024 because one of the reasons they're not replacing him, and actually his dad said this, is because they're not replacing him this year because Red Bull wants that 1-2 at the end of the World Championship. They already won the Constructors' Championship in Sazuka, Japan, which the track used to be owned by Honda and is still used by Honda. So it was a home Grand Prix win and championship win. And now in Qatar, Max is going to win the World Championship and it's going to be sealed up. And it's just going to be Red Bull 1-2, possibly. Because somebody could still overtake Checo, but they're hoping for that 1-2. And in other news that pertains to Checo, Liam Lawson's contract was not picked up. Instead, he's going to be a reserve driver for AlphaTauri and Red Bull. But the rumor going around is that part of the contract dealing said that he had a guaranteed seat for, it didn't say AlphaTauri, it just said a Red Bull seat for 2025, a guaranteed seat. And it was confirmed that Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda were going to be kept on an AlphaTauri. Now, Yuki's a decent driver. He's had a bit of a bad luck recently, but he's a decent driver. As long as he stays cool and calm, he's a good driver. So I'm thinking what's going to happen is at the end of 2024, they're not going to pick up Checo's contract. Checo has shown that he cannot perform to the level they expect. Max and Daniel were partners before, and it was a pretty good pairing, but, Max's talent quickly overshadowed Daniel. And then he didn't like the idea of them going for Honda engines, which were at the time bad engines, and wanted to keep with Renault, and that's why he went with Renault. But it's basically going to come down to, all right, who's going to be the better driver at AlphaTauri next year? Is it going to be Daniel or is it going to be Yuki? And they're thinking, well, if Yuki ends up being better than Daniel, he's getting the second seat at Red Bull Racing. And Daniel's going to stay at AlphaTauri, maybe. Or Daniel is going to go to Red Bull Racing, and Yuki, here's interesting, Yuki might leave AlphaTauri, and at least by 2026, when the new engines come in, he's going to join Aston Martin because Honda's going to be the new manufacturer for engines for Aston Martin. So that's been going on. Going back to the race, Lando Norris, P2, Oscar Piastri, P3. He has been the first rookie on the podium since 2017 when Lance Stroll got on the podium in a Williams. Yeah, it's been a while. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell had a bit of a fight between each other during the race. Funny enough, Toto wasn't there to keep the reins back. But other than that, that's pretty much what happened at F1. Max won. Overall, it was a decent race. Not the best one, but it was decent. And in some other news, it was released that Mick Schumacher was given the opportunity to possibly join Williams, but team principal James Vowell looked at the sim data that was given to him by Toto Wolff, and they said no, which, considering how expensive Logan Sargent has been this past few weeks, I don't blame him. Mick can be a little bit accident prone, and he's actually been announced to race at the World Endurance Championship next year with Alpine. But yeah, that's the Formula One and a little bit of race news. So what do you think?
Well, there was a lot to digest all at once. No, I mean, as far as Checo, we can't excuse it anymore. We love Checo. I would love to yell "Vamos Checo" a few more times before, but is there any possibility that he would even be like demoted to AlphaTauri or anything like that? Or if Checo is let go, we have another Formula One team coming on the rise here. Audi Sauber, I believe that's the name of the team. Why not pick up Checo? The Minister of Defense. Do we? And the other thing is, I mean, it's only a good idea if you think Checo is still a good driver. Which we know he's a good driver, but is it the car or is it Checo?
It's a little bit of both. So one of the big issues is the car has been developed to Max's liking. And in order to keep the car being fast, it has to be developed where the driving style fits Max more than Checo. And at the same time, because he is performing badly in this car and he has to think about driving, because when I think about Formula One drivers is they don't think about driving the car, they do it. It's second nature to them. If you have to think about how do I need to drive this car, then you're going to be making mistakes and you're not going to be as quick as possible. So I think there's the issue of the car being a problem for Checo, but at the same time, that's causing him to have, I guess, mental problems in the fact that he's losing confidence in himself. He's hearing what Helmut Marko is saying, that Checo is not good enough and that he's not paying enough attention to the car and he's just not in it. And there's some truth to what Helmut Marko says. I don't agree with everything he says, but, you know, we've seen Checo do good. It's just, what the hell? Like, what's wrong? Because you can't say it's the car, because Max is being way, way ahead of everybody. He is a tremendous driver, and he's taking everything out of that car, making it go to its full potential. So I think it's just a case that Checo's just not good enough for the car and not good enough for the team. And I think at some point, every driver has to say, am I still really wanting to fight for this? Because former F1 driver David Coulthard said, you don't lose the speed. It's just the need to fight for every 100th of a second. And I think Checo is losing that drive because he's not a young guy. He's 32, 34, which is pretty old in Formula One. So I would love to see him in another team. I don't know if they would take him. That's a big risk with Audi. You also have to think about, they want somebody who's going to be their future and somebody who's going to be their who's going to carry the team at the moment. They need somebody with experience, but somebody who's good and will give decent results. And I don't see Checo being that person. Fernando is an option. And now also, I almost forgot to mention this, but this past week, F1 also held a voting for new teams. So there's some Formula 2 teams that wanted to move up to Formula 1, and everybody outvoted them. But the one team that is still in the running to be the new team in F1 is Andretti Motorsport. So there is a possibility that if Andretti wants, it's America. So even if he's from Mexico, it's still fucking America. It's North America. It's that thing. If you go to Austin, Texas, oh, trust me, with the Hispanic crowd there, they're going to be Jacko. So there might be a possibility with Andretti. I'm not sure. Again, it all comes down to, do you really want to risk it with this driver?
The other name I was going to throw in there for either Audi or Andretti, Sebastian Vettel. Wouldn't that be something? But I think they're going to give Liam Lawson that Red Bull seat. And then it's just going to be Yuki and Danny on AlphaTauri. Because, if Liam Lawson's a young guy, right? Yeah, he's a young guy. If they can teach him or they can train him to drive Max's car, well, then that's perfect. That's what you need. You need a guy that can fit in with that style, that can adapt to Max's car. Checo is having trouble adapting to Max's car. So that's what I think is going on here. And I think that's ultimately what they'll do. They want somebody that will just fit in.
Well, I think we've rambled on long enough. I think we've had enough content to do an episode. So I guess we'll see you next week. So sign us off, white boy.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Waterboy Experience. You can find the Waterboy Experience anywhere you find your podcasts. Also follow us on X at the Waterboy EXP or on Instagram at the Waterboy Pod. I'll see you guys later. I'm tired. Are you tired? You're tired. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Waterboy Experience, and peace.
Second and goal just outside the 10. Hart jumps it in and it's Waller. He spins into the end zone for the touchdown. Watching greatness on one end in LeBron. There's a dude with 35 in white getting it done defensively and then offense taking over the fight.